1973 was when I wanted to be a DJ. It started off as a hobby. As a kid, I used to sit and listen to Herb Kent, Richard Pegues, Jim Rags at night. And what started off as a hobby turned into a full-fledged job. And by the 1980s, I was on a radio station out in Gary, Indiana. The station was out in Gary, WLTH, which I worked for exactly 9 months, which was long enough to have a kid. From there, I moved on. I moved back to Chicago and worked odd jobs, such as working for Ameritech. I worked for Radio Shack. I worked just about everywhere, and did a lot of DJ gigs at clubs, private parties, you name it, I did it. And one night, I was at a club called The Fantasy, which was on 79th and Marshall. I never will forget it. This gentleman walked in and said, "Man, I really like your voice. You should go out to Gary, Indiana. They're hiring at this station called WLTH." I said, "Well, I worked out there back in the 80s. He said, "Well, all those people are gone now, so you can go out there and basically start all over again because they don't know you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." He said, "Plus the station's operations manager is Richard Pegues." Well, I'd never met Richard Pegues before in my life. So one day I was sitting in the production room like I am now, and this guy walks into the station, walks into my studio, and he says, "I need you," I have to do it with my left hand because Mr. Pegues was left-handed, "I need you to do commercials for me." I'm like, first of all, who are you? And why do you need me to do commercials? Well, it was Richard Pegues. I ran home, I told my mom, I said, "Richard Pegues wants me to do commercials for him. He wants me to meet him down at his studio on 23rd and Michigan on Sunday." She was like, "Do it." So I went down there 1 o'clock on Sunday, and he gave me all these scripts, and I knocked them all out. He was like, "Yeah, you're pretty good." So what started out as a hobby, once again, turned into a lifelong employment, because when I wasn't on the radio, I was doing commercials for Richard Pegues. I was, as a matter of fact, one of them I actually sang on. He did a commercial for this, it was a bar called Player's Choice. It was owned by a guy by the name of Fred Marbury. And Richard had been producing records back in the 60s for Nickel, Dime, and Penny Records. Yeah, that was the name of them. And he wanted me to sing on one of the jingles. He was like, "Okay, how's your," once again with my left hand, "how's your falsetto?" I said, "I don't know. I'm no Eddie Kendricks, but, I'll give it my best shot." So I sang on one of the jingles. Don't ask me to sing it now, because I haven't had enough coffee in me. But anyway, so I sang on one of his jingles. One of the first commercials I did for Richard Pegues was for Alexander O'Neill at the Park West. Now, the Park West has probably been closed for years. And I did the commercial, and I heard it on radio. It was on, at the time, it was either BMX or V103 like it is today. And I heard the commercial. I said, "Man, that commercial sounds awfully familiar." Well, it was me. I'd never heard myself on the radio. In my days back at Kennedy King doing commercials and doing voiceovers, I had never heard myself actually on the radio, and it sounded totally different. So fast forward to working out in Gary. I worked for Dusty Radio 1390, which was WGCI AM. Once again, my relationship with Richard Pegues paid off. I used to go to his classes on whatever night it was. He was a teacher over at Columbia College, so I would just sit in on his classes, And one night I came in, got off work, and he said, Herb's leaving. He's going to, I forgot my left hand. Herb's leaving. He's going to V103 to work for 2 days a week at $40,000 a year. I said, what does that mean for me? What it meant for me was that I would take over for my idol, which was Herb Kent, and do afternoons at Dusty Radio 1390, which had just flipped from all talk to all Dusties all the time, Dusty Radio 1390. So I started off as the afternoon guy, and Harold Lee Rush, who was the morning man at the time, left to go to WJPC, which was owned by Johnson Publishing Company at the time, which was on 106.3, which is now Soul 106.3. So I ended up doing mornings and hosting shows out at the Star Plaza and other places. So I was there for a while, and then I got a call from a guy by the name of Charles Moutry, who was the general manager at WJPC. They were looking for somebody to run the station. Their talks with Richard Pegee had fallen through, so they needed someone who knew Dusties and who was, I guess, more manageable, because Richard had his ways and I hadn't developed my ways yet, so not until recently when I got older. But anyway, I told Richard about it. I said, they offered me a job over at WJPC. You think I should take it? He said, no. I said, why? He said, I wish you wouldn't. I said, well, they're trying to push me out at Dusty Radio 1390, so I don't have a choice but to go over there. So against his wishes, I went to WJPC and became the youngest program director in the whole, well, in Chicago.